And anybody I've ever heard talk about Ron Wright has always revered him as just being, just a great wrestler. I guess if you liked it, you were okay, but if you didn't, you probably didn't. But just a super heel.
Oh yeah. Well, his promos were like a Baptist minister. You catch that breath and go, and that was he was a brawler.
Right.
There was nothing technical about Ron. I mean,
right.
I think he and Whitey actually met in the amateur program at the boys' club up where they grew up. But legitimate. I mean, when it came to pro wrestling, he was a brawler, and so. The promos are what got him over, and
right.
just some of the nonsense. I mean, we did an angle, and back then, color television had to have hotter lights because the technology wasn't as advanced as it is today.
Right.
And so, in a color studio, the lighting was really hot. So anyway, Whitey and I had the Tennessee tag team titles, and the Wrights gourded us into defending them on television. And so we got into a 4-way, and Donnie and myself were the illegal guys, and we took the referee out of play. And while we did, Ron had a rag soaked in chloroform.
Oh, nice.
To put Whitey under, right? But the point was, the air was so thick and it was so hot in the damn studio that there was, if you were in that studio, you knew this wasn't work because everybody in that studio could smell that damn chloroform.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
So it got over like $1 million.
Wow.
But, we did business in a rainstorm. I mentioned Chihali Park, the outdoor place.
Right.
But, we were, Kazana never, when Fuller bought the territory, we always had to use the building as backup. For some reason, Kazana never did that. When he had his outdoor schedule, if it rained, he canceled. But anyway, this particular night, it was one of our returns, Whitey and I against the Wrights, and, the windows there was no air conditioning in the dressing rooms in the amphitheater, so the windows were very narrow and high so that, the people on the outside couldn't see in and we could get the ventilation. Anyway, Kazana comes in and he said, boy, it's not looking good, the weather. He said, we may have to cancel tonight. And Whitey was up on a table looking out at one of the windows, and he said, John, before you decide to do that, you might want to, take a look out here. So John climbed up, as did a couple of us, and the lines to the 2 box offices were down the road and around the corner and out of sight, and it was drizzling rain, and they were still selling tickets. That's how hot the angle was.
Yeah, they didn't care. They wanted to see it. They wanted to see what was going to happen.
And the deal was, once the main event was in the ring, you didn't do refunds. So they put one preliminary match on and then ran us in as a second match. I took my boots off. Anytime I had to work on a wet canvas, I found out barefoot was, the soles on the wrestling boots were like putting drag racing slicks on a wet pavement.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just no traction whatsoever. Anyway, if you and I were going to lock up, I had to keep my head down and look at you with my peripheral vision because the way the rain was coming, you couldn't look directly into it. And the people stayed.
Wow.
Yeah, that was, we had some phenomenal good times and Whitey was a hell of a great partner and, good guy overall.
Yeah. You always hear about that.
I guess, maybe still, but I know for years, excuse me, at the anniversary of him being in that car wreck, there were people that they were still putting flowers on his gravesite.
Doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me. I mean, that era of wrestling in general developed such loyal fans that they follow you their whole life, and,
right.
That's something that's missing now. We used to have, if you look at WrestleMania crowd 30 years ago, You see kids, you see teenagers, you see adults, you see older people, you see senior citizens. You look at it this year and you see overprivileged underage kids and all the front row seats. So, that grand spectrum of my grandfather introduced me to wrestling, my uncle introduced me to wrestling, my dad introduced me to wrestling. That's done. And I think part of it is because when a 16 or 17-year-old kid's into the video games and he's watching WWE on Monday night, it's all cool. It coincides. Then he goes off to college. He gets a little bit of education. He comes back, he watches it and says, I can't believe I watched that sophomore crap. It insults me. I think that's a lot of why they bail out.
Yeah. When I know the casual expert, just when I say, I denounce the current product and mention that I don't like the way it's done, I'm discounted sometimes. Well, he's an old man. He's bitter because he can't do a moonsault or whatever. But when you hear young guys that don't watch, Nigel McGuinness,
right,
helped me with a booking in the LA tournament the year we did the thing out there, and so we were together a lot and talked a lot. And I would say, this happened on Monday night. He said, I don't watch that.
Right.
Now here's not a bitter old man.
No.
There's a lot. Well, Lance Storm said to me last year. He said, I don't know that the thing that touched me and made me want to be in this business when I got in is there now and would have made me give me the same feeling.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I started, I lived in upstate New York, and the only two places to go in the continental U.S. at the time to train were the Hearts and it was Vernon, Minnesota. So I was telling the guys earlier, I sold everything I owned, my car, my snowmobiles, my motorcycle, and I packed my bag and I moved 5,000 miles away in 1982 to Honolulu, Hawaii to train at Peter Maivia School when I didn't know a single soul over there. And now you got kids complaining about driving an hour to go to training or an hour to go to a show.
I went 1,000 miles from home. I went to Boston.
Sure, and it wouldn't matter if it took 10,000, you would have went. It didn't matter.
Whatever.
You were going. You were going, and that's the thing. And then being in the business for 5 years, and I decided to go train with Lou Thez for 8 months, which was a torture session, but it was great. But it's like
let me ask you a question. What year was it you trained with Thez?
1988.
Okay, because I don't remember what year it was. Lou and I were the broadcast team for the Savoldis when they were doing TV up in New England.
Yep.
And anyway, but I forget what year it was. But when he decided to quit training people, he contacted me and said, "If you don't mind, anybody that gets in touch with me, I'll refer them to you." And I said, "Louis, do I mind?" I think it's one of the nicest compliments I've ever had in my life.
Right.
Thank you. But I couldn't remember what years but I think this was probably 91.
Right. I think it was shortly after that because it was expensive to go to Lou's, but Lou was a taskmaster, and a lot of people didn't last. I mean, I'd already been trained. I was there to learn how to wrestle like Lou Thez, and be able to take care of myself out there. And it was a lot of guys didn't last. I mean, he was hard on people, and we started out, we did 250 Hindu squats, and then we did crisscross drills, drop downs, then we stretched their neck, then we went and wrestled for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, worked on stuff, and then he would take us to the gym for 2 hours afterwards and work us out at Gant Athletic Center. Or the next day we would go to Gant Athletic Center for 2 hours before we went to the ring and trained for 2 or 3 hours. It was, it was very physical and it was very rough. And, Lou was a little bit gruff like that, but, if more kids had stuck it out, it would have been better, but not a lot of us did, or a lot of them did. But,
I'll tell you, I had the opportunity, well, besides the work on television with Lou, there were a couple times in different territories that he just happened to end up riding with me to, going to do TV promos and stuff. He conducted himself as such a class act.
Always.
Yeah, the way he sold the business.
Yep.
It was, that's another thing too. I mean, it's sort of a trickle down effect. I was talking to, somebody about this a while back. they said, well, you know, the difference in the dressing room. I said, one of the differences in the dressing room is there are no grizzled old veterans anymore in these dressing rooms.
That's right.
I said, I knew to keep, nobody had to tell me to keep my mouth shut. I just was smart enough to keep my mouth shut, you know, you either understood respect or you were taught respect. And,
that's right.
The latter wasn't the way you wanted to go, quite frankly.
No, you know, I tell guys that my first locker room in Hawaii, the first show I worked at, Mark Lewin was there, Torquemada was there, Steve Ricard was in from Australia. I mean, Steve Aoki was at the top of his game at the time. He was there. I mean, there was some legitimate guys, Lars Anderson, some older guys that were badasses that I knew one thing. If they spoke to me, I was going to speak to them. I was going to be polite, shake their hand, sit down, and shut my mouth.
Yeah, I know.
For fear of reprisal. Listen, let the other guys get in a little bit on this and talk to you. Les, you're listening to the Undisputed Wrestling Show on AngryMarks.com, and we've got wrestling icon Mr. Les Thatcher with us. And William Huckabee, quick question, then we'll go to Drew.
Yeah, man, this is such a wealth of knowledge. I was about to say, Mr. Thatcher, you being one of the greatest trainers of all time and stuff, and the list of guys you've trained who've made money in this business goes on and on for ages and stuff. In your opinion, what's one of the better qualities, some of the best qualities that a person should have in order to be a successful trainer?
Oh, wow. I would say patience, but Drew would choke if I said that. You have to have a feel, realize that every person is not the same. And you have to try to deal with that, accordingly. You have to realize, it's like, someone talked about a year curriculum. There is no such animal. Everyone learns at a different pace, or people get injured. It's just, I don't know. I never thought I would be one, but I think, the good Lord bless me with being one. And I'll tell you, there are damn few legitimate ones out there, and I just hurt some feelings probably when I said that, but I don't, facts are facts. Sure. But you've just got to have a feel. And more importantly, you got to understand that these people, good, bad, or indifferent, are going to be an extension of you. I see too many guys I worked with a young man a few months ago that told me one of his initial trainers, and this young man had no cardio, and I mean he realized that he had so much to learn, yet he's been in the business I forget how many years. But anyway, his pearl of wisdom from his trainer was, you got to be good, good comedy sells.
Oh, Jesus.
I thought that's the, okay. Well, there's one of the basics of our business.
That was a good one to tell you.
Yes.
There might be a time and a place for Bugsy McGraw, but it's not on every show. That's for sure.
Well, I think that's part of the problem now too, we're becoming a parody of ourselves.
I agree.
It's sad, but and again, people say, I don't want to turn the clock back to 1960. I had no desire to do that. But I think it's time to put a little more wrestling back in the game and to actually, the part I don't understand, Q, is, we never had R-rated, family-rated, PG-13 rated, 50 years or 40 years ago. We just played to the families and it seemed to work okay.
Absolutely.
But it's just, I don't know. I think that they're trying, I think they did take the stance, it's a show, so we'll make it a show. But I think that's where we start losing our juice.
I agree with you.
I got one more question. I got one more question, and that's it, dude.
You've overstepped your bounds. No more questions for you.
when it's all said and done, Mr. Fez, and so this is a question I've always wanted to ask you. What is going to be your legacy? What do you want to be known most for when it's all said and done, when it comes to professional wrestling?
That whatever I did in the business, I gave my heart and soul to, and I did the best I could. I think I've got a legacy. Part of it probably isn't one I want, but I probably got it anyway. A lot of people will be surprised to know that I don't breathe fire. Yeah. But what I did, I try to do what was best for the industry and for the individuals that I worked with. And I hope that, that I was successful in doing that.
I think all of us passionate guys sometimes get a little bit heated because we care. And, I saw an excerpt from Billy Gunn when they were doing this, what's that reality show, Tough Enough, and they're doing that. And I saw him basically sit on the side of the ring and cut a promo on these guys. And I had one guy say, boy, what an idiot. I said, he's not an idiot. I said, he cares about the business. He's passionate. He wants these guys to take it as serious as he did. That's all he wants, and sometimes that gets misconstrued as, I'm evil. I'm not really.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is people just don't understand that, what they do affects all of us. It really does. Les, I wanted to talk about, you said, the different things you did. I kind of wanted to get into that. Of course, I've been lucky enough and honored enough to know you for some time now, and I wanted to let these guys get to talk to you. But I want to get in a little bit of the different things you did. You started off, you had a great career as a wrestler, very well known for your broadcasting that you did. You ran a very successful promotion. You trained for the developmental, what has now led to NXT. Those things started way back before, and you were definitely a part of that. And they integrated the different things. Tell us and walk us through it. And now you're one of the most revered trainers in the country. Tell us a little bit about the different transitions in your career, going from in-ring to broadcasting and the different things.
I'd like to say, I had this grand plan, but I didn't. I mean, it's some of it just happened. I mean, obviously, I went to Boston to become a professional wrestler. The thing with broadcasting, I always thought some of the disc jockeys from the Alan Freed, from the classic rock and roll of the 50s and 60s, those DJs are really cool, like Wolfman Jack, and that sort of thing. And I don't know, the broadcasting thing just maybe I played around with it, but I never got serious about it, until I met Gordon Soley. Most of the broadcasters when I first started in the business were, the local, news weather guy, or he hosted the kiddie show and, worked for the station, and usually I guess promoters gave him $25 or $50 and they got themselves over sometimes more than they got the boys over, But when I went to Florida the first time and met Gordon, and I thought, wow, and the way he does this and the way it should be done, and, that sort of thing. So I've kind of played around in my head. So anyway, long story short, how guys talk on the road. And then in 1970, I went to Eastern Canada for my buddy Rudy Kay. And, he called, we did our TV in Halifax. We lived in Moncton, and we went down to Halifax on Tuesday, did the house show, stayed over, caught TV Wednesday morning, and then went to another town. But anyway, he calls me at my apartment and said, when you remember when we run them down the roads in North Carolina, and you said maybe you'd like to try, doing broadcasting or something. I said, yeah. He said, we'll be sure to bring your suit with you to Halifax tomorrow. And I said, why? He said, because you're going to do the TV show. I'd never done a TV show in my life. I mean, I'd been interviewed. He and his whole family, Leo Burke and the Beast and all the brothers that worked, were all noted for their ribs. So I'm thinking this is a rib. No, but the guy was doing his broadcasting, had a death in the family in Toronto, so he had to go to Toronto. So Rudy's sitting going to fill in. I had never cued in and out of a segment. I had no idea, but I got through it. And, back then it was a single man on a desk. You didn't have broadcast team, and maybe once in a while a wrestler would come out, but pretty much you were working by yourself. So anyway, we got through it. And I did 2 weeks. I figured I'd do a couple weeks. And then he called me and he said, look, he said, you're doing a good job. And he said, I'm cool with you finishing out the season. They ran a season from mid-April to mid-October. And